When Victoria pushed me for a divorce again, all for some actor, I decided to give in. Her hand, holding a cigarette, paused in mid-air. After a moment, a smirk played on her lips. What's this? So obedient this time. Finally realized throwing a fit is pointless, so you're trying a new tactic? I slid my wedding ring off and said calmly, no, I just don't want to drag this out anymore. After a long silence, Victoria stubbed out her cigarette. Leaning against the wall, she said slowly, there's no real rush, you know. It's just that Ethan's career is really taking off right now. And you constantly harassing him is just so annoying. I didn't answer. Stroke by stroke, I carefully signed my name on the divorce papers. Only then did I look up. Don't worry, it won't happen again. Victoria froze for a second, her thoughts unreadable. After a moment, she straightened up, her voice now holding a faint, almost imperceptible trace of irritation. Fine, it better not. Or else, you know the consequences. My body trembled slightly, an involuntary reaction. The last time she tried to force a divorce, I'd had a complete breakdown. I'd leaked the explicit photos Ethan had sent to taunt me all over the internet. But Victoria sued me for defamation and won. Afterward, his fans doxed me, leaking my personal information and forcing me to make a public apology. Back then, after hearing the court rule in her favor, Victoria had been the same way, watching with perfect composure as I fell apart. Then, with a raised eyebrow, she had dropped the line, "Honey, happy with the outcome?" Strange. It was so painful, so suffocating at the time. But thinking back on it now, I feel nothing, only a sense of irony. Walking out the front door with my luggage, I looked at the plane ticket in my hand. It dawned on me slowly but surely. I was finally free of the relationship that had brought me nothing but humiliation. On a massive screen in the shopping mall, Ethan was smiling, confident and dazzling, in an ad for a luxury watch. The image merged with the memory of the arrogant punk who had so brazenly provoked me. Victoria was right about one thing. Ethan's career really was on the rise. Those explicit photos hadn't hurt him at all. In fact, his fans had praised him for his unapologetic attitude, hailing him as the realest one out there. The first time I found out Victoria was cheating was because Ethan himself provoked me. Back then, I raised hell with her entire family. I made sure everyone knew about the shameful thing Victoria had done. During that time, everyone tried to talk me down, telling me to be the bigger person, telling me to compromise. But I was filled with hate. I hated Victoria for betraying me. I hated her for turning me into a hysterical madman. All while she was living it up with her boy toy. I couldn't accept it and I wouldn't compromise. Then came the day a reporter snapped a photo of them going to a hotel. It became a huge scandal. To protect Ethan's career and reputation, Victoria made a decisive move. She went public with their relationship. At that time, the trending headlines were all about the love story between the wealthy heiress and the handsome actor. The news drove me insane. I stormed into Victoria's company and screamed at her. Victoria grit her teeth and told Ethan to leave first, which only made me spiral further. As my tantrum reached its peak, she finally snapped, her face cold. That's right. I'm a horrible person, and I cheated. If you can't handle it, then divorce me. Her words hung in the air. We both froze. But in the end, I was the one who broke the silence. I was even more hysterical, more unhinged than before. Why the hell should I divorce you? Why should I let you and that bastard get what you want? Victoria, you and him can carry the shame of being cheating scum for the rest of your lives. We parted on terrible terms after that. Victoria didn't even come home anymore. The only way I could keep track of her was through Ethan's posts on X, where he'd show off their relationship. Hit from all sides, I made a radical decision to go scorched earth. I posted our marriage certificate online, exposing the truth of their affair. But before the story could gain any traction, Victoria struck back. She paid a hefty bribe to my father's specialist, preventing the doctor from returning from abroad to treat him. Then she forced me to issue a clarification, to claim the marriage certificate was a fake. The moment I found out, the blood drained from my face. I didn't even notice Ethan's smug, triumphant expression. I practically shrieked, my voice cracking. "Victoria, you know his condition can't wait. You know this could kill him. How can you be so heartless?" But Victoria was unmoved, calmly holding her cigarette. She waited until I collapsed onto the sofa, utterly exhausted. Then she stubbed out her cigarette and said slowly, "Honey, don't expect any mercy from me. Go make the statement. Don't ruin him." In that moment, my heart felt a suffocating, hopeless pressure I'd never known, like a dying fish, gasping and flopping on the shore. I couldn't believe the woman in front of me was the person I had once loved. And it was on that day that I finally decided to end this relationship. But my humiliation was far from over. My father's illness couldn't wait. I had no choice but to compromise. I personally admitted the marriage certificate was a fake, that it was all because I was jealous, that I was delusional. To this day, the comments on that post are filled with vile abuse aimed at me. "Dude, are you that desperate for attention? Psycho. Daring to spread rumors that my idol is a homewrecker. You're pathetic. Can someone slap some sense into him? I'll chip in. I've got 5. I've got 10. During that time, I was in a daze like a zombie. My only escape was sitting by my father's bedside. Maybe I looked too worn down, because even without being online, my father sensed something was wrong. He sighed and started reminiscing about Victoria and me. When Victoria and I fell in love, she hadn't been acknowledged by her family yet. She was still the wild girl living with her grandma, barely having enough to eat or warm clothes to wear. It was my father who had supported her. He had even paid her tuition. But now, my father's past kindness had become a knife twisted in his back. He had no idea what his son was facing. I looked at my father's increasingly frail face. Let it be, I thought. At least I still have my father. At least I haven't lost everything. But fate enjoys tormenting the unfortunate. When I got the call that my father was in critical condition, I rushed to the hospital like a madman. But I was forcefully surrounded at my own front door by a mob of Ethan's fans. They had doxed me, finding my home address. They were here to righteously condemn me. I couldn't break through the crowd, my eyes turning red with panic. I could only keep trying to explain the truth. But not a single person believed me. Hilarious. Still daydreaming? How pathetic can you be? You were so smug when you accused my idol of being a homewrecker. Who are you crying for now? In the midst of the argument, someone got angry and shoved me hard. You're shameless. Just apologize already. I stumbled back 2 steps and fell hard onto the ground. I heard someone let out a snort of laughter. Ignoring the stinging pain in my knee, I finally gave in. Like a puppet on a string, I kept apologizing to the cameras. I was pathetic. I was delusional.
I'm sorry, Ethan.
It was all my fault.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
The righteous mob of fans, as if they'd won a great victory, laughed and finally let me go. See? Should have just done that from the start. But by the time I rushed to the hospital, it was too late. For a moment, I thought I was in a long dream, that when I woke up, I'd still be the little boy who used to fall asleep in his father's arms. That I hadn't met Victoria yet, hadn't been reduced to someone people could trample on. But reality delivered a fatal blow. I had chosen the wrong person, and because of it, I didn't even get to see my father one last time. That day, I knelt by his bed and cried helplessly for a long, long time. The nurse who had been taking care of my father told me his last words. The old gentleman was calling your name at the end. He said, no matter why you didn't make it, he doesn't blame you. He just hopes that you and your wife can live a good life together. I held my father's cold hand, sitting stunned on the floor, silent for a long time. I don't remember much of what followed. Going back to my hometown, the cremation, the funeral. Finally, I sat in the memorial hall and made one last call to Victoria. At the very least, she should come to see the elder who was thinking of her even as he died. When the call connected, I realized my voice was raspy and broken. My dad passed away, I said. But the voice that came through the phone was Ethan's, cheerful and mocking. Well, congratulations. But Victoria's a bit busy for you right now. She's with me at a doctor's appointment. Who is it? Victoria's voice followed. I hung up, numb, and spent the entire night awake in the memorial hall. After that, I calmly returned to the city. I bought a plane ticket, liquidated my assets, and agreed to the divorce. Let the past be the past. Before boarding the plane, I sat in the airport and began my final revenge. I was never the type to take abuse lying down. I sent a collection of sensitive company information to Victoria's main corporate rival. Only after confirming the money was in my account did I feel at ease. The internet was flooded with negative comments about me. I could click on any random topic and see my photo photoshopped into ugly memes for ridicule. And even after all this time, Ethan's victim-playing statement was still pinned to his profile. It was from the day I was forced to deny our marriage. Ethan, what goes around comes around. Throw all the dirt you want. I've never been afraid of anyone. The comments below were all sympathetic. Now that's a real man. People who use dirty tricks to ruin a man's reputation don't deserve to be called men. My idol is just too kind. He didn't even sue. I curled my lip in a sarcastic smile. Then, I bundled up all the taunting messages Ethan had sent me and forwarded them to his biggest competitor. A nice bit of outsourced vengeance. Just as I was about to turn off my phone, a call came in from Victoria. Forgot to tell you, the divorce cooling off period is only 30 days. If you want to back out, it's not impossible. But you'd better do something to make me happy. Her voice was as casual and confident as ever, as if she was certain I couldn't let her go. I looked at the boarding time and said flatly, "Got it." Then I hung up without another word and boarded the plane. That was the first time Leo had ever hung up on her. Victoria stewed for 5 days, still feeling annoyed. She got out of Ethan's embrace. Then she put on her trench coat, planning to go home and check things out. Ethan wrapped his arms around her from behind, clinging to her like a vine. "Victoria, stay with me a little longer." Victoria turned her head and said coolly, "About your situation. Don't tell Leo yet." Ethan pouted. "You're already getting divorced, what's there to be afraid of?" Victoria stiffened, a strange wave of anger rising in her. "We still have 25 days. How is that divorced?" She pushed Ethan away, got dressed, and went home. She hadn't been back in nearly a week, and the house was unnervingly quiet. A sense of unease crept over Victoria, and it peaked when she saw the kitchen, which showed no signs of use. She pushed open the bedroom door and rummaged through the closet for a long time. Finally, in the trash can, she saw what she was looking for: the ring. The day they signed the divorce papers, Leo had placed it on the table and pushed it toward her. She hadn't taken it, because deep down, she didn't believe Leo would ever really agree to a divorce. Even if he signed the papers, he would regret it sooner or later. After all, Leo loved her. Victoria picked up the ring and carefully wiped the dust off it. This was from when she was 19. She had tutored, worked odd jobs, and delivered food, working nonstop for 3 months just to buy it. For her and for Leo, it held immense meaning. So he must have dropped it in the trash by accident. Victoria stood up and looked at the wedding photo hanging on the wall. The Leo in the picture was just 22, dressed in a sharp suit, his smile bright and sunny. Come to think of it, the reason she had gotten involved with Ethan was also because of Leo. She could never forget the 18-year-old Leo who had dazzled her youth. Back then, she was poor, rebellious, and had nothing. It was Leo who had given her all his warmth. Later, she was accepted back into her family. She shed her identity as an illegitimate daughter and shot up the social ladder. And, as she had always wished, she married Leo. But Leo had changed. He'd lost his freewheeling college spirit and become conventional and boring, just like all the other fake sons-in-law of wealthy families. Victoria knew deep down it was because Leo came from an ordinary background. To marry into her family, he had to learn to fit in so he wouldn't embarrass her. So even though she was disappointed, she still loved him. Until Ethan appeared. He was so much like the younger Leo. Victoria felt it was only natural that she would fall for him. The first time she mentioned divorce to Leo, it just slipped out. The moment she said it, she felt a pang of regret. The subsequent times she brought it up were only because she felt he was making too big of a scene. She just wanted him to tone it down a bit. After all, compared to the other women in her circle, she was practically a saint. In all these years, there had only been Ethan. For Leo to make such a fuss over it was truly ungrateful. Besides, she never really intended to divorce Leo. As long as he behaved, as long as he was a little more tolerant, she would come back to him eventually once she got tired of playing around. Victoria picked up her phone, deciding to call Leo and smooth things over. But before the call could connect, she realized she had been blocked. Her brow furrowed. It seemed impossible. She and Ethan had been together for years, and even at the height of his fury, Leo had never blocked her. Before she could figure out why, her phone rang. It was Ethan. Victoria, Leo leaked our stuff to my rival's company. There's an army of trolls on X now, and the story is starting to blow up. What do I do, Victoria? I'm so scared. How could Leo be so disgusting? Does he really want to destroy me that badly? Listening to his whining, Victoria's brow tightened. Leo had pulled the same stupid stunt as last time. Hadn't he learned his lesson? She remembered Leo's pale, powerless face as he had confronted her, asking why she could be so cruel to his father. For a moment, Victoria's resolve wavered. She thought of Leo's father, the man who had helped her when she was young. In truth, she had only been trying to scare Leo back then. Even if Leo had refused to make the clarification, she wouldn't have let the man die. But Leo had agreed. He had been very obedient. I know, I'll handle it. Hanging up, Victoria was in no mood to coddle Ethan. She decided to find Leo. As long as he agreed to clear this up, she would remarry him. She'd even take him on a trip to that country he always wanted to visit. It was a trip she had promised him when they got married. But right after the wedding, she had been busy dealing with her family, busy building a career to prove herself. By the time she finally had free time, her relationship with Leo had already fallen apart. But she had still gone on that trip with Ethan. At the time, Ethan had found out about her promise to Leo and had pestered her about it endlessly. She couldn't stand his nagging, so she agreed. Victoria recalled Leo's reaction when he found out she had gone with Ethan. He had looked like he was somewhere between crying and laughing. A strange tightness gripped her heart. She tried to call Leo's father, but found the number had been disconnected. She had to call Leo's closest friend instead. And then her face changed. Leo sold all his assets and emigrated.
Impossible.
There's no way he'd leave me, Victoria shouted in disbelief. But she quickly calmed down. Leo's father was still in the hospital receiving treatment. How could he possibly leave his father? But when she called the doctor, she was met with a confused reply. Ms. Liu, I've already returned to the U.S. Victoria was furious. You went back to the U.S.? Who's looking after my father-in-law? The doctor's tone grew even more puzzled. But the patient passed away last month. Didn't he? In that instant, it felt like Victoria had been struck by lightning. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. Passed away? How is that possible? She murmured blankly. If he had passed away, why didn't Leo call her? Why didn't he come to her? Suddenly, Victoria remembered the phone call she'd received while at the doctor's appointment with Ethan. She hadn't clearly heard what Ethan said at the time. Thinking back on it now, her face turned grim. She called Ethan, her voice icy. Did you say something to Leo about that? Ethan's voice was nervous as he tried to defend himself. Victoria, I was just so happy I wanted to show off a little.
Victoria exploded.
You idiot. Have I or have I not told you not to provoke Leo? Do you have any idea what your place is? Ethan's face paled, and he bit his lip. But you're divorced. Victoria, aren't you going to marry me? Victoria laughed, a sound devoid of humor. Marry you? When did I ever say I was going to marry you? Leo and I were together for years. Do you really think you can break us up? Ethan clenched his jaw, his voice choked with tears. Victoria, you can't do this to me. What about our son? What will happen to Aiden? But Victoria had already hung up. Clutching the watch, she scrambled out the door. Leo, are those your new alpacas? An old man's friendly voice called out. I turned and smiled at him. They are. I'm planning on staying here for a while. Here's to hoping every day is a good one. After arriving in Australia, I used my liquidated assets to buy a villa in the suburbs. Came with a huge lawn, A few alpacas were perfect for passing the time. As for matters back home, I didn't want to think about them anymore. Victoria's corporate rival was still waiting for the right moment and hadn't made a move yet. But Ethan's world had already been turned upside down. Rumors that Ethan knowingly became a homewrecker and that the heiress of the Liu family was a cheater were once again trending. This time, the evidence was more complete, and many people were raising doubts. For instance, there was a timeline of photos from when Victoria and I were together, and the voice recordings of Ethan's provocations. Several of my old high school classmates also came forward to confirm my relationship with Victoria. They were probably paid, but the evidence they provided was real. The comments section on Ethan's ex profile had completely imploded. I actually wanted to say this last time, but that marriage certificate showed no signs of being photoshopped. But you all just cursed out my whole family. God, they're disgusting. How dare those two shameless cheaters be so arrogant? Didn't Ethan's fans praise him for being the realest one out there? The kind of real that involves taunting the husband and bragging about how his rich girlfriend spoils him. I can't even imagine how much pain the husband was in when he was forced to apologize. Ethan, get out of the entertainment industry. That cheating bitch needs to get out of the gene pool. And Ethan's fans need to get out here and apologize too. None of that had anything to do with me anymore. I hired some new help to deal with the weeds in the garden. It was too much heavy lifting for one person. My helper was a girl named Ivy, in her early 20s, with a sprinkle of freckles and a smile that was pure sunshine. Leo, I want to eat your braised ribs again. Can we go shopping for them? Please? Her playful wheedling just made me laugh. But I still nodded. I never expected to run into a red-eyed Victoria on the street. At that moment, Ivy and I were loading several large bags of groceries and supplies into the trunk of my car. Ivy, like a young deer, shook her ponytail. Leo, I'm all sweaty. I used a tissue to wipe her forehead a few times, and that's when I heard a familiar voice. Leo, aren't you going to explain who this is? Victoria was standing behind me, staring daggers at me. I turned around, and after a brief moment of surprise, my expression returned to calm. Can I help you? Ivy looked at her, confused, then asked me, Leo, who's this? I said flatly, my ex-wife. Victoria's face darkened visibly. She looked at Ivy. What, you found a little tramp this quickly after moving abroad? She sneered. Ivy didn't quite understand what tramp meant, but she could tell from Victoria's expression it wasn't a compliment. She frowned but said nothing. Victoria was trembling with rage. She strode forward and tried to grab my hand. Come back with me. We'll get remarried. Her entitled tone finally made me snap. I yanked my hand back and slapped her hard across the face. Don't touch me. You're disgusting. The force of the slap whipped Victoria's head to the side. Before she could even process her anger, she heard my voice, filled with revulsion. She froze. After a long moment, she bit her lip and said, I didn't know Dad passed away that day. Leo, I'm not that heartless. I just found it laughable. So what? Victoria said firmly, come back with me. I can overlook your thing with this little tramp. I actually laughed out loud. I raised my hand to slap her again, but she caught my wrist. Without hesitating, I kicked her hard in the stomach. Victoria's face went white, and she stumbled back a few steps, looking at me in disbelief. I wiped my hand with disgust. What right do you have to overlook anything I do? It's fine for you to cheat with Ethan, but I can't find a partner? Victoria, who the hell do you think you are? Victoria grit her teeth against the pain and lifted her head. If you're upset about that, I can break up with Ethan. Sorry, I'm not interested anymore. I sneered and took Ivy's hand, pulling her toward the car. A vein throbbed in Victoria's forehead as she chased after me. Leo, you can't do this to me. I ignored her, but Ivy, for some reason, had the presence of mind to call the police. After a brief exchange, an officer walked menacingly toward Victoria. Victoria was used to getting her way back home and didn't take the police seriously at all. Get lost, she snapped. The officer, of course, wasn't about to put up with that. He immediately raised his gun and shot her in the leg. Victoria cried out in pain and collapsed to the ground. Watching her clutch her leg in a pathetic heap, I felt not a shred of pity, just a sense of dark amusement. She deserved it. Through the rearview mirror, Victoria saw my cold expression, and the color drained from her face. Finally, she screamed at the top of her lungs, "Leo, you get back here." "Back at the villa," Ivy said seriously. "Leo, this is too dangerous. I need to protect you." I thought about it and decided she had a point. "All right, you can name your salary." Ivy's face lit up at the mention of a salary. I had no romantic interest in Ivy, and she had none in me. The only one with a dirty mind was Victoria. After that day, Victoria seemed to quiet down. After all, if she didn't let her leg heal properly, she really would end up with a limp. The next time I saw Victoria was at the gate of my villa. This time, she had Ethan with her. Ethan clearly didn't understand the situation. The scandal back home had hurt his career, but he figured that as long as he could marry Victoria, he could live a comfortable life even without being an actor. So, at this moment, he looked incredibly smug. He grinned at me. "Leo, long time no see." But Victoria's first words made his face fall. "Leo, if you're willing to come back with me, I can make him disappear." I stared at them both, expressionless, just feeling annoyed. But Ethan's face went white instantly, his voice trembling. "Victoria, what are you saying?" "I thought you loved him." Victoria didn't speak, just pressed her lips together and stared at me, as if waiting for my answer. Ethan completely broke down. "You monster. How could you do this to me?" I calmly watched the drama unfold. Only when Victoria impatiently shoved Ethan away did I speak, slowly and deliberately. "Get lost, and don't ever let me see you again, or I'll have the police shoot you again." Victoria's face changed, and she instinctively touched her thigh. The gunshot wound there hadn't fully healed, and the phantom pain was still fresh in her mind. Just then, Ivy walked out of the villa. She was holding a shotgun. "Back off, or I'll shoot." Victoria's expression shifted again, torn between fear of the gun and fury at seeing Ivy come out of my house. She backed away, shouting, "Did you sleep with her?" I just sneered, saying nothing. Victoria and Ethan were forced all the way past the villa gates before Ivy lowered the gun. I was about to go back inside when I heard Victoria's phone ring. It was her assistant from the company. Victoria answered, and her face went through shades of green and white. She looked at me in disbelief, and at that moment, I finally remembered that my new business partner back home had mentioned something. That with Victoria's reputation in ruins and her inexplicably out of the country, this was the perfect time to strike. So, the call she was receiving now was likely to inform her that her company was in trouble. I watched her with great interest, even raising an eyebrow at her smugly. Then I mouthed the words, "I did this." Victoria's expression began to crumble, as if she'd suffered a massive shock. I swiftly shut the gate, giving her no chance to scream at me. Business problems can't wait. So Victoria only stood outside the gate for a short while before rushing back to the country to deal with the crisis. I went back to my leisurely life, eating, drinking, and enjoying myself. The alpacas in my yard grew strong and healthy, and I had enough money to last a lifetime. Sometime later, I heard that Victoria had managed to turn things around and save her company. But before I could get angry, I heard her company was in trouble again. This time it was Ethan's doing. Victoria had forced him to cut ties with their son and refused to help him pay off his massive breach of contract fines. She was clearly trying to wash her hands of him. Desperate and resentful, he chose to follow my example. He stole company secrets and sold them to Victoria's rival. Causing chaos twice due to personal issues had consequences. Victoria was directly removed from her position as CEO. Her family's company wouldn't collapse, but it no longer had anything to do with Victoria. Her ambitious uncle took over the family business and then announced that Victoria was being kicked out of the family. Victoria had suppressed her uncle for years, and their relationship was toxic. Now that her uncle was in power, Victoria's fate was sealed. Some more time passed, and I heard Victoria had been in a car accident. Ethan was the one who hit her. He had taken money from Victoria's uncle. But Victoria only had herself to blame for being so ruthless. She had pushed both of her men to drive her to her own destruction. The car accident didn't kill Victoria directly. Instead, in a crueler twist of fate, it cost her both of her legs. She was now a cripple. A fitting end, all things considered. Another autumn came, and I returned home alone to visit my father's grave. Coincidentally, on the street, I saw Victoria in a wheelchair. She looked so worn down that I almost didn't recognize her. To my surprise, she was running a small street stall. It was probably her only source of income now. I felt no pity, just a terrifyingly calm emptiness. The once envy genius had been destroyed by her own hand. I thought of Ethan again. After being forced out of the entertainment industry because he couldn't pay the fines, he had been sent to prison for assault. Thinking about it now, he should be getting out in a couple of years. I wondered what kind of sparks would fly between those two then. I didn't let Victoria see me. I just calmly turned and walked away. My father's grave was clean. I had hired someone to tend to it regularly. Looking at the gentle man in the photograph, my eyes grew moist. I knelt and whispered, "Dad, I'm doing well on my own now. I'm happy." A gentle breeze rustled my hair. Felt like my father was answering me.